I'm a bit sick right now, so if I sound like Janice throughout the video, that's why. After the second Tales from the Pizzaplex book released, we now have two different Help Wanted titled contents in the FNaF series, one being the FNaF VR game, and the other being the first story in HAPS. Help Wanted is definitely my favorite story so far, besides the epilogue, because not only is the writing impeccable and not only is the plot just so well done, but it also gives us actual good information about the lore of the games. In this video, I'm going to be giving you guys a brief summary of the story in case you haven't watched my summary video, although I think you probably should if you haven't, and then I'll be discussing a theory that I have about the story. I've actually thought up two different theories for it, but this video will be about the first one and my next theory will be about the second. I also have a planned B7 theory, which will connect to the Freddy and Friends cartoons and when they take place and any secrets in them and stuff. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get talking about Help Wanted. Despite it being blatantly confirmed for us when Tales was first announced, many people don't believe that Tales from the Pizzaplex takes place in the game's timeline. However, aside from the blatant confirmation, there are some stories that actually do confirm these books to be in the games. This is one of them. In FNaF VR, we learned that the Freddy Fazbear name was tarnished by a series of indie games, spreading rumors of murder associated with the Fazbear brand.
We know that Fazbear Entertainment has developed something of a bad reputation over the last few decades, and while it's true that some stories associated with our name were loosely based on actual events, the majority of them were total fabrications from the mind of a complete lunatic, lawsuits pending. But we aren't above laughing at ourselves. Ha ha ha. That's why we have recreated many of these completely fictitious scenarios, lies, that you've been fed over the last several years into a hilarious VR game.
Later in the game, Tape Girl reveals that Fazbear Entertainment actually hired the game developer to conceal and make light of the murders.
They told us that the whole point of this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue indie game developer who supposedly made up a bunch of crazy stories that tarnished the brand. But that's not true at all. In their haste to develop this VR game and clear their name, they sent us some things I don't think they intended us to see, such as a hard drive containing emails between Fazbear Entertainment and a certain indie developer. Fazbear Entertainment hired the game developer. Those indie games were designed to conceal and make light of what happened. This isn't just an attempt to rebrand. It's an elaborate cover-up, a campaign to discredit everything.
In Help Wanted, the story, we see these events play out. The main character of Help Wanted is Steve Snodgrass, a failing game developer who wants nothing more than to just be successful. Working a crappy job, he is one day approached by Venom, working for Fazbear Entertainment, who offers him a job to make 4 horror games poking fun at the old rumors to make people think they were fake. But he declined the offer, feeling it was immoral, and also not liking the idea of Fazbear Entertainment shipping him off to a remote location. Later on, he gets a message on his dating app from a girl named Victoria, who to him looked extremely beautiful, so he decides to meet with her, ditching the date with another girl to go meet her. When he got there, the fire alarm let out a high-pitched ringing sound, causing him to collapse, and he wakes up to find out that he was married to Victoria and had 2 children with her, and apparently had been in a car accident and had memory loss. There had also been a foreclosure on their house, and Steve knew he had to make more money, so he takes the job that Fazbear Entertainment offered him. He works in the games, but hears strange noises at night and sees horrifying things, giving him inspiration for the games he is now making. There's a massive snowstorm trapping them in the house, making Steve fear the monsters in the house even more. He makes 3 games before having enough of the constant ringing sound and destroys the fire alarm, revealing that Victoria and their children had been robots all along. He blocks the door from them, but then hears DJ Dan the Music Man on the radio, who tells him that all of this will stop if he presses one button on the radio. He does, sees Victoria, hugs and kisses her, and then she kills him, and that's the end. This story reveals the identity of FNaF VR's indie game developer. He is Steve. It also confirms the idea that the illusion discs from the Twisted Ones and the Fourth Closet exist in the game's timeline. That's something we kinda already had an idea about, but it's nice to know for sure. For context, the Twisted Ones basically talks about how our brains are constantly receiving more information than we can process, so it often cuts corners, and the illusion discs produce a high-pitched sound to overwhelm our brains and see something that isn't there, to see what we expect to see. Steve is constantly hearing these high-pitched sounds, except when he's working on the games and nowhere near the fire alarm or his wife and kids. And when he destroys the fire alarm, destroying the source of the noise, Victoria and the kids are revealed then to be robots. And when Steve turns the disc back on, he goes extremely dizzy, just like what happens in the Twisted Ones. So that settles it. The illusion discs exist in the games. And this also ties into something else interesting that I've talked about in a previous video about why Fazbear Entertainment is just as guilty as William Afton. It was a theory a lot of people thought was obvious, but I just was pointing out the reasons why in that video, and it just shows that even without William, Fazbear Entertainment is an extremely evil company. Help Wanted, the story that is, shows that to a super degree. They want these games made, so they fake everything Steve has ever wanted and torture him every night just so that he can make the games. It's also interesting to note that Fazbear Entertainment has illusion discs, but the question is, how? The illusion discs in the novels were made by Henry, and then the technology is stolen by William. We can assume that the same is what happens in the games, so William has the illusion discs, but then how does Fazbear Entertainment retrieve them? Well, it's certainly possible that they found the fried illusion discs on Baby's body, if she actually does have illusion discs in the games, which I'm unsure about, and reverse engineered them. They could have also found Michael's house, where the Bite Victim's old plushies are, which have illusion discs. That ties into the next thing I want to talk about. If illusion discs exist in the games, where are they used? Well, FNaF 4. It's been well established at this point that Michael Afton is the player of FNaF 4, with the appearance of the FNaF 1 phone call in the FNaF 4 nights and the drawing of Nightmare Fredbear in the logbook, and I've gone over all this before and more in a separate video, so if you haven't seen it and you want more detail, check it out. But in the logbook, the Bite Victim is also asked, do you have dreams? Which implies that the Bite Victim has experienced the nightmares as a dream before, possibly when he was in a coma for like 1 day after the bite. But that's not what we play in FNaF 4. What we play in FNaF 4 is absolutely a nightmare since Michael draws Nightmare Fredbear under recent dreams, but that's just it. We play as Michael in FNaF 4, not the Bite Victim. The Bite Victim also seems to have faced off against the Nightmare animatronics physically, as in not a dream, probably before the events of FNaF 4's minigames. What if William purposely put the Bite Victim into the house and tortured him with the nightmares for 2 reasons? 1, maybe Elizabeth has died at this point and he's trying to make sure the Bite Victim fears the animatronics, and 2, to experiment with the illusion technology. So, hold on, let's backtrack. If the Bite Victim was the one to experience the nightmares and in the same room that Michael did, how did Michael just have the same nightmare? Well, he didn't. The Bite Victim, as revenge for Michael killing him, purposely inflicted the nightmares into him. These nightmares are what the Bite Victim experienced, but the Bite Victim is putting Mike into the position that the Bite Victim was put in by William. But these were originally the Bite Victim's nightmares, and he's basically just torturing Michael, reminding him of what he did. He reverts Michael's bedroom back into what it looked like back then, the bedroom of a child, and he taunts him with the flowers and IV drip, basically shoving in his face that this was all his fault. But the pills also don't make sense for the Bite Victim, since he was a comatose patient and wouldn't be awake to swallow them. It could be that Michael takes these pills in response to having these night terrors. Basically, everything Michael sees in his nightmares were a part of the original nightmares, excluding the flowers and pills and IV, as well as maybe the pathing of the animatronics, since they actually mirror the FNaF 1 animatronics, more proof that we play as Michael, and the FNaF 4 gameplay takes place after FNaF 1. So, that makes it interesting that there are Freddy and Foxy plushies on the bed and in the closet respectively, but the Freddles and Nightmare Freddy appear on the bed, the same place where we see the Freddy plushie. If Foxy gets into the closet, if you close the door on him enough, he transforms into a Foxy plushie. What if the Nightmare animatronics aren't actual animatronics, but are just the Bite Victim's plushies containing illusion discs? I'm not saying that the plushies just move on their own, although with everything we've seen in the series, I genuinely wouldn't be surprised. But what if the plushies were just sat in the hallways, in the closet, and on the bed, and the illusion discs are just creating the illusion that they are moving, despite being completely static? In the hallway level of Curse of Dreadbear, we also see the Bite Victim's plushies in the bedroom, and since this isn't the Bite Victim's actual bedroom, it seems like an important detail. But is there any proof that it actually is all caused by an illusion disc? Yes. When Nightmare Fredbear is on the bed or in the closet, if you shine your light on him, he makes this sound. It's a high-pitched ringing sound, and this could be trying to tell us that these are caused by illusion discs. While we're still on the topic of FNaF 4, let's talk about the main reason I made this video. When I was reading Help Wanted, I had the idea that the FNaF 4 equivalent in the FNaF universe is actually not named FNaF 4, but is just a mashup of Night Terror's minigames, which in FNaF VR are represented by night terrors and some of the levels of dark rooms. But at the end, it said that Steve has only finished 3 of the games. The 4th game was never finished. That's why in Help Wanted the game, there's FNaF 1, 2, and 3, and then a bunch of random minigames. So that means that even if the first 3 FNaF games aren't real events and were just made up for the games, which I doubt, but even if they were, then FNaF 4 and beyond are absolutely and completely real events in universe. But we also see minigames in FNaF VR from those other games, such as Plush Trap, Funtime Foxy, Nightmare BB, and also Nightmare Fredbear. So that would imply that all of those other minigames are real events too. Plush Baby, Mangle Vent Repair, Ennard Vent Repair, Funtime Freddy, Nightmare On, all the Parts and Service minigames, and Circus Baby's minigame all really happened. Here's a question I bet a lot of you are asking. If FNaF 1, 2, and 3 are actual games in universe, could that mean that the Scoop is canon? The Scoop, for those of you who don't know, is the second story in Felix the Shark, and the story is about a girl who is literally a fan of FNaF 3 and finds an interesting image of a building in the FNaF 3 files. So could this story be in the game universe now that it's confirmed that FNaF 1, 2, and 3 are canon in universe? Well, I don't think so. The issue with the Scoop is that it seems to be in a continuity where Fazbear Entertainment itself as a whole doesn't exist, as it's implied that there isn't a real Freddy Fazbear's Pizza or anything, only references to Fredbear's Family Diner and the basic storyline. So I don't think the Scoop is canon. So now going back to the FNaF VR levels being canon events, the question is, where do each of them take place in the timeline? Let's start with Ennard Vent Repair, because I had a pretty interesting idea about it. What we found, the 3rd story in the 8th Fazbear Frights book, is about FNaF 3, and it shows Springtrap producing agony-manifested memory hallucinations. This would imply that Springtrap is actually the one who created the Phantoms. In hard mode of Ennard Vent Repair, we face off against Ennard in Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental, but there we can also find Dark Springtrap. For those of you who don't know, Dark Springtrap is basically Springtrap after burning in the FNaF 3 fire. William himself is completely fine, but his body is crumbling, so he needs a new one. That's how he ends up as Scraptrap in FNaF 6. He finds another Springlock suit and either switches suits or repairs his body with that other suit. So how is William in Ennard Vent Repair? Well, it's possible that this is actually where he goes after the FNaF 3 fire. This is where he goes to repair himself. And interestingly, here, in the same level where we see Springtrap, we see Phantom Freddy. Is that a coincidence? Maybe this is trying to tell us that Springtrap actually did create the Phantoms, whether intentionally or if it was just like his agony wafting off of him. But if this were to take place after FNaF 3, which is years after Sister Location, how is Ennard back here? Well, keep in mind that he became Ennard right before leaving, so how is he here? Well, remember that Baby was booted out of Ennard sometime between Sister Location and FNaF 6, which is implied by this website source code conversation and confirmed in FNaF 6 itself, where we see Scrap Baby and also Molten Freddy, which is Ennard, but the body of Funtime Freddy took over control. Yeah, it's very possible that Ennard and Baby actually returned to Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental separately to retrieve some things to rebuild their bodies. Circus Baby finds her body, or maybe another Circus Baby body, and uses the lights in the Circus Gallery control module to rebuild her chest. She fishes the claw out of her original body and sticks it on her hand to use as a weapon. Ennard, on the other hand, somehow gets the Funtime Freddy head back by FNaF 6, which would imply that he returned to Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental. What we play in Ennard's Vent Repair could just be Ennard and Afton returning to Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rental to rebuild themselves in preparation for FNaF 6. Circus Baby, Funtime Freddy, and Nightmare On are a bit hard to dictate, but I think it's most likely that Nightmare On was actually changed to being canon in FNaF 4, and Circus Baby and Funtime Freddy are actually underneath the FNaF 4 house, or at least they're meant to be. The problem is that during Sister Location, Circus Baby says that she hasn't seen Michael before, or at the very least, he doesn't know at this point that she has. So Circus Baby and Funtime Freddy don't seem to be before Sister Location, but they also can't be too soon after Sister Location because by then they are Ennard. I think it's a possibility that the player of FNaF AR is Michael Afton. Now, I know you may think that this is coming out of nowhere, but hear me out. The Fazbear Funtime service is meant to last for 24 hours. That's it. But hours glitches, becoming the Eternal package lasting 999 years, I think. Something like that. So that basically means that we don't just play as a random person in FNaF AR, or just ourselves. It seems more likely that we are someone specific, and it's very possible that we play as Michael Afton, who survived the fire of FNAF 6, something I talked about in my Henry video and my Greg Buff video, and is now too weak to actually go location to location and had to try stopping this stuff from the shadows. And then he gets the Eternal Package, is sent Funtime Freddy and Circus Baby, who were both always meant to be in the game, and Funtime Freddy finally is, and has been since around when Security Breach came out. Also, it's interesting to note that in FNAF AR emails, or something about FNAF AR, I'm not really sure about the situation, but something like that, there's emails between someone named H. Crofton and M. Afton. Who do you think M. Afton could be exactly? Michael Afton. It's gotta be. And that could also further support that Michael is alive after FNAF 6, which I think is pretty clear. I mean, you might not believe that, but I think it's most likely mostly because of the fact that, well, Gregory is most likely a robot, and Michael built Gregory, and Gregory was built to destroy, quote, the vile band, which is obviously referring to the Glamrock animatronics, so Michael had to have built Gregory when the Pizzaplex was already under construction and planned and stuff. So yeah, there's that. Another option could just be that Michael feels guilty that he can't do anything else and has nightmares where he faces off against these characters. But what about parts and service? When does that take place? Well, there's a bit of a dilemma because there is one option that is slightly hinted at, but also doesn't really make sense timeline-wise. But it does actually make sense for the other ideas, which I'll get to in a second. So when do the parts and service minigames actually take place? After FNAF 1. FNAF 1 takes place in November of 1993, and the newspapers tell us that the location is going to close by the end of the year, implying that FNAF 1 takes place not long before the closing. However, in FNAF 1, Foxy is out of order, but in Foxy's level of parts and service hand unit says that Pirate Cove can now be reopened. This implies that the parts and service minigames take place after FNAF 1, but before the closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Also, there's one other minigame in FNAF VR that I haven't really touched on, but that's because we know for a fact it's a real event, Pizza Party. That is representing Gabriel getting lured. That was just a bit of a tangent, not really relevant to, parts and service, but anyway, in Security Breach, there's a bunch of Easter eggs that are of minigames from FNAF VR. One of those Easter eggs is kind of like a combination of all 4 rooms from Parts and Service, but it is different and combines elements from all 4. So the Parts and Service minigames probably don't take place in that room, and not during the construction of the Pizzaplex. However, the other minigames actually might. Some of the other Easter egg rooms are actually from the remaining levels that we haven't talked about yet, those being Mangle Vent Repair, Plush Baby, and even a Build a Mangle room from Curse of Dreadbear. It's possible that those minigames actually took place during the construction of the Pizzaplex. One interesting thing about the Pizzaplex is the appearance of Kids Cove, which in FNAF 2 is where Mangle is. But in Kids Cove and Security Breach, there's no animatronic that represents the place. And it's the only one that's missing an icon animatronic. Fazbear Blast has Freddy, Roxy Raceway has Roxy, obviously, Monty Golf has Monty, obviously, Bonnie Bowl has Bonnie, obviously, L-Chips and the Superstar Arcade have L-Chip, obviously, the West Arcade has DJ Music Man, and Mazer Size has Chiga. Kids Cove is the only place with no one. The daycare is also actually an extension to Kids Cove, but they're still also technically separate. So then, what is the deal with Kids Cove? Well, what if there actually was an animatronic at Kids Cove, but after a while they were removed? After all, Tales from the Pizzaplex so far has shown quite a few attractions and animatronics that were discontinued as we don't see them in Security Breach. So it could be possible that Kids Cove had a discontinued animatronic. And don't you think it's strange that there's not only 1 but 2 FNAF VR level locations in Security Breach where the main antagonist is Mangle? It's odd, right? So what if Mangle was at the Pizzaplex, the main animatronic at the Kids Cove attraction, who ended up going haywire, probably due to Glitch Trap, and started attacking people working on the vents, or building alternate versions of Mangle, causing him to get removed from the Pizzaplex attractions? Hell, while it's absolutely possible that it's a FNAF AR animatronic, since that's probably what the rest are, Mangle being at the Pizzaplex could even explain the Mangle head in the blob. After the incident with the Endo in the first Tales from the Pizzaplex epilogue, Fazbear Entertainment abandoned their plans to turn the old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place into a monument to the past Freddy's locations, and basically made the building into the Fazbear Entertainment dump. They dumped the old animatronics they don't need, broken FNAF AR ones, so if Mangle went haywire, it could be that they dumped Mangle down under FNAF 6 as well, and then it got absorbed into the blob. But what do you guys think? Do you think the FNaF VR levels are real events? If you do, where do you think they take place in the timeline? And if you don't, well, I guess this was a waste of time, but I have no shame in this theory and I think it works. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.